I asked my wife what one of the many photos from our trip to Paris she wanted me to draw as a gift, and it was this one from the facade of the Louvre Museum. I drew hundreds of photos like these 4 that are framed here. And for all of them, I used a pencil outline, here's my reference photo, which I then drew over in pen. But I learned that there are better ways to do it than others. So let me share now my best tips if you want to ink over a pencil outline so that your finished work looks as great as it possibly can be. And the first tip is to make sure your pencil is as accurate as possible, or else it's not really much help. And while I draw directly in ink now, I liked the pencil outline, both for the confidence it gave me, but also the accuracy that it gave me. But my approach was this. First point, do small self-contained objects, such as these first 2 chimneys I've drawn, the pediment on top of the facade with the sculptures in it, and then the roof, because they stand alone. But secondly, do all the important alignments in one go. And with a drawing such as this, from this angle, the perspective lines of the facade is the most important thing to get right. So I want to make sure they all line up exactly. And so I tend to draw them as much as I can in one go across the paper. Now there's lots of details to add, so there are lots of choices to make. But generally, if the perspective lines look accurate and straight, then other slight mistakes won't be nearly as obvious. And so again, I'm doing each of these pairs of columns as a little separate element. I establish the top and the bases of this section where the female sculptures, the caryatids, are, and I do each of them one by one. Now, possibly the most important tip I have for you, the most important technique, advice I have, is do not go over the pencil lines. Still draw from the reference photo. Use the lines for confidence and for accuracy, but don't just trace over the top of them or your drawing will look dead. So continually refer to the reference photo and see the detail that you weren't able to capture with the pencil, which is a thicker line, but which you can capture with the pen. And so I work along doing these repeated elements. As you can see, I go right along the line following that perspective angle that I have, both for the top and the bottom of these pairs of columns. And it's exactly the same going off to the side. And then I do the tourist, of whom I was one, at the bottom of this scene. So my next tip is make sure you remove all the pencil line before you put the tone over the top, because it doesn't always erase very well once there's tone over the top. I like to do all these arches one after the other because I get a bit of muscle memory in my arm, and so they become more accurate. Well, that blur was my erasing my pencil line. So now I start with the tone. The thing to understand with tone is that we read tone, whether a tone's light or dark, in relation to the tones around it. Tone is a tremendous way to create interest, contrast, draw attention, and also depth. So save the most extreme tones until the very end, but certainly establish some darker areas, work out where the lighter areas will be, if any of the subject will actually keep the white of the paper, or if you want to put tone of some measure over all of it. I'm using Copic sketch markers, neutral grey colour in this, probably 6 or 7 different tones. And so it's very important to be accurate, to have a light touch. Because it's easy to do a lot quickly with these sketch markers, it's important to slow down a little bit so we can control our line, because we can also be very inaccurate very quickly as well. If you look at what I'm doing, you can see that I'm really trying to cover as much as possible in one go, and then I keep going back over and over and over to different parts just making adjustments, especially now with these darkest tones. Because now that I have a reasonable amount of tone on this, I can better work out how dark I want the darkest areas to be. And I find the darks really helpful for the clothing of people to really help separate the different people from other people. Drawing with a pencil outline is not an easier or more difficult way of doing things. It's just a different way with its own challenges and at good points. So why not give it a go if it's not something you've done before? And have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.